we got together, and when we did the video, he give me this death row chain. I get back to the west side of Chicago. I'm excited because I'm getting the opportunity, you know what I mean? Hopefully this is the spotlight that I need to get on the stage that I'm trying to get to. And as everybody say, Uncle Snoop, I definitely don't refer to him as no damn uncle. Like, maybe I should, because there's a few uncles that I don't like. Maybe he's one of them. And so he offered me, he give me this chain, I put it on, and I'm living in the middle of the hood. Nice spot, but I'm in the hood where it go down at, with this death row chain on.
He didn't just expose a fake chain, he exposed what he believes was a fake brotherhood, a fake blessing, and a fake death row legacy wrapped around his neck like a glittering lie. This wasn't some quiet industry disagreement whispered behind closed studio doors. This was Danny Boy going live, eyes blazing, voice shaking between disbelief and rage, tearing apart the image of one of hip-hop's most untouchable icons, claiming that the chain Snoop Dogg personally took off his own neck and placed on his was nothing but costume jewelry, a symbol of loyalty that allegedly had no value at all. And when that realization hit him, it didn't just sting, it detonated. Because to Danny, that chain wasn't metal and stones. It was validation. It was supposed to be a resurrection. It was supposed to be a sign that death row royalty had reached back and said, "You're family." Instead, according to him, it turned into public humiliation. The story doesn't start with anger. It starts with excitement. It starts with nostalgia. It starts with that intoxicating feeling of being called back into the circle you once helped build. He explains how Snoop reached out first, not the other way around. And when Snoop came calling, it didn't feel random. It felt divine. He was told this opportunity wasn't arranged by managers or middlemen. It was destiny. It was God. And Danny believed it. Because at that moment, he was already building momentum on his own. His independent music was moving. Charts were climbing. There was money on the table. He wasn't desperate. He was progressing.
Shit. He gave me a contract, and the offer that he gave me was $10,000. He offered me $10,000, and then after offering me $10,000, when I looked in the agreement, because I'm looking at it and my attorney looking at it at the same time, and I don't know if he think that I'm like one of these artists that don't. Like, I got off of Death Row Records from studying the damn contract, and he put this contract in front of me for a $10,000 advance for 2 singles, right? For 2 singles. And I'm in a group text with him and his A&Rs, and I sent a text because he told me to keep them abreast of what they send. So I sent a text in the group chat, and I told them that I was perplexed. What I was perplexed about? I was perplexed about the offer, the money that he offered me. Because you offered me $10,000 for? I'm not saying I don't appreciate it, but like $10,000. Then we look further in the agreement. The contract was going to keep me 7 years exclusively to him, meaning I couldn't do nothing else. So I'm going to shut my shit down for you for 7 years for $10,000.
But when a legend says he wants to elevate you, when a man who publicly talks about loyalty, growth, and brotherhood says he sees greatness in you, that hits differently. Then came the moment that would later feel like the beginning of the illusion. He paints the picture vividly, him walking through Chicago with that heavy death row chain shining on his chest, believing it symbolized protection, status, and revival. He believed he was being embraced. He believed he was being elevated. But behind the scenes, another narrative was forming. The excitement began colliding with paperwork, contracts, terms, numbers that didn't match the size of the promise. Because when the deal arrived, the reality did not match the spiritual language. 7 years for $10,000. To Danny, that wasn't mentorship. That was containment. That wasn't elevation. That was restriction. And when he questioned it, he claims the response he received wasn't understanding, it was condescending. He was told to recognize a blessing, to be grateful. And that's when something shifted internally, because now the chain around his neck wasn't just jewelry. It started to feel like a leash. He says the deal ultimately shrank even further after deductions, leaving him with only $7,000. $7,000 while losing the $50,000 opportunity he already had lined up independently. $7,000 while sacrificing leverage. $7,000 after being told this was destiny. But the financial insult wasn't what broke him. What broke him was what happened next. next. It was curiosity that led him to the jeweler, maybe instinct, maybe doubt creeping in quietly. He took the chain to be cleaned, something routine, something simple, and that's when the illusion cracked. The jeweler's reaction said everything. Confusion, surprise, no appraisal, no valuation, no sparkle under scrutiny. And in that moment, the symbolic weight of that chain collapsed. Because if the chain wasn't real,
Snoop took this off his neck and put it on my neck in a So High video. And I went to go get the chain cleaned, and I'm like, shit. The person I took it to was like, shit, you want to clean it? He's like, what's this? I'm like, what you mean, what's this? I mean, I don't know if I should have thought if it was real or not, right? But like even the little fake shit that I wear, you know, it's. I mean, let's not even say Cuban. What's the other ones that you wear? This Morrisonite. Like, this ain't shit. This shit ain't worth shit.
Then what else wasn't? The loyalty? The promises? The God did this narrative? Danny describes feeling not just embarrassed, but endangered, because he had been walking through neighborhoods where that chain could have made him a target. And the betrayal started feeling bigger than money. It started feeling intentional. It started feeling like image management, like handing out symbolic chains for optics while the contracts quietly locked people in. He wasn't just mad about jewelry. He was mad about perception versus reality. He was mad about what he believed was being used as a prop in someone else's brand story. The moment the jeweler's words sank in, something inside Danny Boy didn't just crack, it shattered completely. Because now the chain wasn't just worthless metal. It was a symbol of everything he believed had been staged. Every promise, every encouraging word, every moment he thought he was being lifted back into the spotlight suddenly felt like it was part of a performance designed for appearance, not reality. He realized he had been walking through the streets of Chicago wearing what he thought was a priceless death row artifact, a symbol of survival, loyalty, and status, when in reality, according to him, it had no real value at all. And that realization didn't just embarrass him, it terrified him. Because out there, perception is everything, and perception can get you killed. This wasn't just anger anymore. This was humiliation colliding with survival instinct. Because in Danny's mind, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was negligence, or worse, indifference. He believed he had been turned into a visual prop, something that could be shown publicly to reinforce a narrative, the legend uplifting artists, the icon blessing the next generation, while behind the scenes, the reality felt completely different. And the deeper he thought about it, the more everything began to feel like a carefully constructed illusion. Because think about the symbolism. A death row chain isn't just jewelry. It represents power, legacy, acceptance into one of the most feared and respected dynasties hip-hop has ever seen. That chain is supposed to mean you belong, that you're protected, that you're chosen. But Danny was now staring at something he believed represented none of those things. Instead, it represented betrayal. He says he even tried to sell it, maybe hoping there was some hidden value, maybe hoping the connection to Snoop himself would make it worth something. But according to him, nobody wanted it. Nobody valued it. Nobody saw it as anything special. That rejection hit deeper than the jeweler's words. Because now it wasn't just about what he had lost financially. It was about what he had lost emotionally. The belief that someone he respected genuinely wanted to help him. And that's when his anger reached its peak. That line hit like a confession. He wasn't just putting away a chain. He was putting away the last physical reminder of a moment he once believed would change his life. He describes putting it in a box next to his plaque, not as a trophy, but as evidence. Evidence of a moment where hope turned into humiliation. And what makes this story even more explosive is the emotional contradiction it creates. Because publicly, Snoop Dogg is seen as a symbol of longevity, wisdom, and generosity. Someone who overcame exploitation himself. Someone who rebuilt death row into a symbol of redemption. But Danny's version paints a different picture. A picture of promises that didn't materialize. Of contracts that restricted instead of empowered. Of symbolic gestures that, according to him, had no real substance. And the psychological impact of that realization was devastating. Because Danny wasn't some random artist chasing fame. He was part of the original era. He lived it. He helped build it. And to him, this wasn't about chasing clout. This was about confronting what he believes was a betrayal of legacy. He describes reaching a point where he no longer wanted revenge, no longer wanted confrontation, because the damage in his mind had already been done. What remained wasn't rage, it was clarity. Clarity that forced him to reevaluate everything he thought he knew about loyalty in the music industry. Clarity that made him realize how easily perception can be manipulated. Clarity that exposed the difference between public image and private reality. And perhaps most painfully, clarity that revealed how quickly respect can turn into resentment when trust is broken. Because in his eyes, that chain wasn't just fake jewelry. It was fake belief, fake opportunity, fake redemption. It represented the moment he realized that the validation he thought he received might have been nothing more than optics, a visual narrative designed to maintain an image rather than genuinely elevate his career. And that's what makes this story so explosive, because chains in hip-hop have always symbolized power, ownership, belonging, legacy. But in Danny Boy's story, that chain symbolized something far more dangerous. It symbolized illusion, and once illusion is exposed, it can never be unseen. Now the chain sits in a box, silent, motionless, stripped of its original meaning. Not as a prize, not as a badge of honor, but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous betrayals aren't the ones that come with threats or violence. They're the ones that come disguised as blessings.